Have a place to sit. This is in response to citizens' petitions and then a meeting that I had with the chief and the Harbormaster to initially discuss issues in Baker Cove, but also for a larger discussion of Marine Patrol in the City of Groton. So with that, Chief, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On 10/17, the Harbormaster, Jeff Seedzik, myself, and the mayor met regarding Baker's Cove. And this is a two-part discussion, so we'll talk about Baker's Cove first. So the plans in place for that are that the no-wake buoy is to be installed west of the Pine Island Marina at the entrance to Baker's Cove. There are two no-wake signs to be installed on Pine Island that will cover the westerly entrance to Baker's Cove. Plastic no-wake signs have been made available by DEEP for dock owners to place on their docks, but the Harbormaster, myself, and the mayor are a little concerned based on the construction material that they might not last or at least stand up to any kind of weather that we have. So the Harbormaster is looking into a metal signage as a possible substitute. The 2024 boaters, we're going to meet with the 2024 boat owners in Baker's Cove. The greatest concentration is at the Elks, so that's where we'll concentrate our public meeting, and we're going to make sure that we have our 2024 safe boating manuals on hand because we can distribute those. Those are put out by DEEP, but they do have the Baker's Cove restrictions listed in there. Jeff, you got anything on Baker's Cove?
Pretty much covered it. It's been not enforced for numerous years, so some bad habits have happened, especially with 2020. COVID times, everybody went out and started boating, and as of recently this summer, it's been promoted on social media as being the go-to place. So the activity of transient visitors has increased immensely, and has caused issues from non-enforcement. So we've been working, the Harbor Commission and myself have been working for several years with DEEP, trying to get the permitting in place for these no-wake markers, and we finally have gotten that goal set, and as the chief said, they'll be installed for this coming season.
So that's the Baker's Cove part of this. As far as the Marine Patrol, so this is the general discussion and the working discussion on what the residents brought forward last time. So just to give you an update on where the Marine Patrol sits right now. So we do have staffing availability. We have 3 captains and 6 mates. It requires 2 people to run the boat at any time. So that gives us a total of 3 potential crews that we can rotate through, with a captain and a mate being on each crew. These are ancillary assignments for us, meaning that they are part-time. This is not part of our regular duty. This is something that we pick up over the boating season, and we man the boat based on that. The schedule for the upcoming boating season will be starting on May 25th and run through September 29th. It'll be mostly Saturday and Sunday patrols for 4 hours a day. There'll be a concentration on afternoon hours because that's the return time when the boaters tend to come in and cause the most problems for us as far as waking is concerned. So we're looking either at 12 to 4 or 1 to 5 p.m. That gives us 36 shifts total that we have to cover, 18 weekends at 2 days each, and we're going to require 2 crew for each shift. So what does that look like as far as funding is concerned? So based on that, that's 144 hours each, times 2 crew is 288 hours. We have a fuel cost. We figured we pulled out one of our recent receipts from a few weeks ago, and for an 8-hour patrol, that cost us $246. So if we run that over 18 weekends, and we're running 8 hours a weekend, that's $4,428 in fuel. The crew costs 288 hours, we're averaging about $63 an hour. That's going to be $18,144. So if we add those two together, for the 2024 boating season, the total cost will be $22,428. Now, our budget breaks up the boating season. So there are 5 weekends in the 2023-2024 budget, which is the existing one we're in right now, and there are 13 weekends in the new budget which is 2024-2025. So the funding for the 2023-2024 budget, which is not in place right now, is roughly $1,230 in fuel and $5,040 in salary for a net of $6,270. For grants, we have, and the Harbormaster sits on the marine safety group for this area, so we're fortunate in that. But we are going to be looking at grants this year because our vessel does need some upgrades in electronics and repowering. We're going to be looking at 2 outboard motors. The retail cost of those is about $21,000 a piece, and so for a total of 42. But the Harbormaster assures we can get a better price than that, right? Okay, cool. And then our electronics, we need a transducer, which is our depth finder. We need a FLIR, which is a thermal forward-looking infrared. We need a spotlight, remote spotlight, and then AIS. AIS is an Advanced Information System. The reason why we're going to put that on the boat is because the Coast Guard can actually program our search patterns to do. We don't have to call out for it, and it'll show us automatically where to go for search and rescue type missions. So we look at a $57,000 cost for the grants. If it's a 25% match this year, unit and Waterford's line, they have, Waterford puts aside $25,538 for their 2024 budget. Stonington puts aside $24,000 for their 2024 budget, and the town of Groton does not operate with a separate Marine Patrol budget, but they do take their overtime from, they pay their Marine Patrols from their overtime budget, and they do average 8 hours shift for each weekend. And that's about it for what I have, so any questions?
Any questions or comments from the council? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to say thank you for this very thorough breakdown of the costs. Because I feel like some of these items could have been, for example, fuel. Some might think, oh, that's negligible, whatever, but it's obviously important to know the total cost of what it's going to be.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have a couple of questions. So you said that it's part-time, but how does it affect staffing levels overall? Because I know, we have a certain number of officers that we have. That number is based on how many we need on the road. So does this affect our staffing levels on the road or otherwise?
So, we're gonna shuffle people around. So luckily, the 3 captains are supervisors, so not all 3 supervisors are gonna be working the same shift all the time. So even if we require a road supervisor, it means that the other 2 captains will be available, and then we have enough mates to pull from. They're not all on one shift, thank goodness. So we can pull them from different shifts, or we can pull in people on days off to work this. What hasn't been done in the past is we haven't put this out as a summer schedule from May to September. We're going to do that this time. So we're gonna have 4 months of scheduling where we'll have this sign up ahead of time.
So then how will that affect overtime? Your
We're
overtime?
gonna pay, it's all overtime. This is 100% overtime.
Okay, so you're planning on it just being all
Yes,
overtime?
ma'am. Because that's the only way reasonably I think we can fill it with just having the 29 officers and having to pull people in to work this. We're gonna have to pay the overtime on it.
And then, when you do the budget for next year, is your plan to try to incorporate this minus whatever grants maybe we can receive on top of what your budget plan was already? Or are you going to try to cut somewhere else to fit this into the budget?
So I don't think it's possible to cut. And Mayor and I have talked, we are very close on our line items, and that doesn't take into any consideration as far as material expenses that have occurred this year, thanks to COVID, which are passed on to us, and we're having to purchase items at an increased price that we didn't plan for last year. We planned to purchase the item, but the price is a lot more than we planned on. I would say if we have a 1% over on each item, we'll be lucky on that. And I don't think we're there at all. It's just, we're very tight on materials, and as you're aware, personnel is the main cost for us. It runs about 87%. So we only have about 13% anyway, and all that money is already spoken for.
And then, so with that, how do you feel, because our budget has to get approved by the town,
Yes.
how do you feel that this increase is going to be received by the town, considering we are also planning on adding a social worker into the budget next year? So do you know about how much your budget is going to be increased for the next budget?
At least 40,000, I would say, for this, if we go for the grant increase as well, because we're gonna need that 25% match, otherwise where are we gonna get that from?
Mhm.
Okay, and then the social worker, the mayor and I have talked, so, and this is an aside, but I haven't done the social worker before, the CIT before, then I would recommend that we go a little bit of a different route and look at contracting those services, but that's for a different discussion.
Okay, so, but, and I know you haven't had to defend your budget for years to the town, so it's, you know,
Yes.
the process is relatively new, but how, I guess, I mean, this isn't really, it's kind of a rhetorical question, I guess, but are you prepared to fight to include this in the budget? Because I think that you may have to.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, it's what the residents are asking for, right? So if the residents weren't supportive of this, then I would say that my fight is not gonna be as effective as it could be. Obviously, as we get closer to the budget time, I would expect that our residents will show again to voice their support on this. Besides that, you know, do we have water tragedies that have occurred in Connecticut this year, in southeastern Connecticut? Yes. We just answered a call today, actually, for a canine in the water that fell off a dock. So we're doing that kind of rescue still. As far as waterborne, 2 weeks ago, we were over in New London, assisting them on a search of waters for evidence. The reason why is because we're the only ones in the area that have that capability. You have to go to Willimantic to find the next group of people that can do that. Is that something that we're willing to give up? No, that's, at the end of the day, it's council's decision, and then it's town council's decision. But at least that way we have an explanation as to, or the residents do as well, as to whether or not this council or town council supports this type of activity.
And I just want to say I am supportive of this. I think this cost is reasonable for what we need. It is a safety issue. I also think for our police department, it is another service that we offer, and from at least the little bit that I've heard, it's another kind of task or like certification that our officers can add that makes their job more interesting, which I think makes it easier to keep officers when your job stays interesting. So I think all around, this is a really good idea, and thank you again for all the detail in this presentation.
Any other questions or comments, Councilor Piazza?
Thank you. With that said, so those who are trained, are you looking in the future to train other officers to be motormates, or?
Yeah, so
Keep it where it's at?
No. I think that we have to run a 3-crew minimum anyway, as far as having availability is concerned. The issue is that some people just aren't comfortable in the water. Some of us don't swim. I do, but some of my officers don't swim. So I don't have 100% participation just on fear of the water and not being comfortable in it. But you do have to be very competent in handling these vessels. And the reason why is because this is not just pleasure craft out there, tooling around in the water. We have to actually go out. We have to know how to get up close to other vessels, so we practice boarding. And then, one of the most critical tasks that we have to do is search and rescue. And the reason why we have to do search and rescue is because if you talk to the Coast Guard right now, at any time, they only have one rescue boat available, and that's it for their staffing. So, is it necessary? Unfortunately, is it necessary for towns and municipalities to pick up these duties? I think it is.
Well, with that said, I was going to ask, when you say residents are in support of this, are we talking specifically residents in the Baker Cove area? If not, is there an association in Baker Cove that would be, their fees cover part of this, or not at all?
Well, this is municipal funding, right? So I don't know if you can ask for private funding to cover
Yeah, I don't know, that's why I was asking.
Right, I don't think you can do that. So.
Thank you.
So another thing that we're doing is we're offering swimming lessons to our police officers to get them more comfortable in the water so that we can expand our roles here.
Where would that be?
So we're doing water safety. I have Mary getting us the
Avery Point pool, so I can put my office in the shallow end, and talk about some water rescue techniques.
So we have a relationship, actually have an MOU between Youth on Every Point and us with the fields and the pool. So we already have that in place. So, Councilor Carter?
Couple things. And you do bring a good point. You know, it is the city, but it is a portion of the city that doesn't affect, you know. But just like the social worker that's brought, you know, there's some people in the city that don't need the social worker as well, or may not need a social worker as a mix as different populations within the city, right? So, I do think if you do have those move forward, if the town is like, well, you know what, you want this and this, you know, kind of pick one type of deal, that is a bigger discussion. And if that becomes an issue where it's like, okay, you have residents that are giving little kickback on the patrol services, you know, that could potentially be a possibility to ask residents down there what they can do. I mean, I know they do it with Groton 1 Point. They're about to take over the police, and then Groton 1 Point, the citizens stepped up, you know, so I guess that's how bad you want it. My other thing is, and this is just from being on the job, I can see a portion that's been really good as far as on a monetary standpoint, especially for cops, right? But I can also see the officer that wants nothing to do with it and who potentially could get ordered in, you know, based off department needs because we have borders in the water, right? Have you given any thought, is this gonna be a voluntary thing? Or is this a patrol, is the department needs, you know, this is, we man the general patrols first, right? Make sure we have everybody on board, and then kind of like, have you given any thought to what that, I know there's ordinance at every department, right? You know, and particularly in the summertime when people book off or just don't want to go to work, or they want to go boat in Cape Cod somewhere on their own boat, right? I can see that potentially being an issue. You know?
Yeah.
Do you see any problems with the union? We're not gonna talk about the union stuff, but
So, we order on a daily basis now for patrol, right? So this is gonna be voluntary, and the reason why it's voluntary, again, we go back to competency, right? I can't put somebody on the boat that it's their first day, they don't know what they're doing. Mates have a job to do, whether that's tying off, fendering, boarding, being a lookout for us, snagging things from the water with a hook, or moving debris, catching debris. The captain's in charge of the vessel. The captain has to control the vessel. So the mate is an integral part of that crew in the fact that they do have to know what they're doing when it comes to a boat. If I tell them it's port starboard, you know, bow or stern, they have to know what that is as opposed to left, right, front, and back, you know. So some of that nautical terminology, if I'm talking about red and green lights, they have to know what side the red and green lights are on as far as navigation is concerned. They have to know what I'm talking about when I talk about red and green cans, or navigable waters, or channels. And then we go into the 15 statutes, which is all the boating statutes. You have to be intimately familiar with those in order to go out and do enforcement. Like the Harbormaster was saying, part of this need is the fact that we've missed the enforcement from COVID going forward, right? So we need to get back out there again because there are an increase in boating complaints that have come in.
But and it doesn't need to be a drawn out thing, because some people may not understand what I'm trying to say. So I'm on patrol, right? I'm working day shift, right? And there's somebody else that maybe had off that day or chose to pick this shift to boat, right? And you need somebody to work second shift, right? Am I getting ordered in for an extended shift, or do I have to work because of that person's on the boat, you know, and I'm just on patrol working, like that, like on the road, that would be that'd be an issue, you know, just because
Right.
like, right, why is he not getting ordered in? Because maybe he can't work a double because he already worked during the day.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna take him off the boat, so I'm not gonna take him off shift to put him on a boat and then leave a gap where somebody else is gonna have to come and fill it. So this is gonna be taken from the outside, from the available pooling. Because the way we do overtime anyway, orders in, is you have to have the front and back shift of that, so then you split them 4 and 4. So you have to be working anyway, so it can't affect your days off,
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
okay? So this will be the days off.
I gotcha.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Norris?
Thank you. It's a perfect example of responsiveness, working out the details, not burying it in the sand, and coming in with a budget, so I appreciate that. Real quick, so when you say this season, or the season, so we're saying moving forward, the season will always be made through end of September?
That's when the heaviest boating traffic is, sir, so that's when we tend to go, well, that's what we usually call our boating season.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I also just want to highlight, because I've been hearing this, and you and I spoke about this, this is not a Baker's Cove issue.
No, it is not.
That dog wasn't on Baker's Cove.
No, it wasn't.
You know,
Right.
it's a coastal issue, it's a
Right.
Groton City issue, it's a safety issue. Anyone can fall in that water and get hurt.
Correct.
Right? Anyone can go to the beach, and if there's not a lifeguard present, they're calling you. Regardless, they're calling you anyway, even if there is one.
Yeah, and we haven't even, discussed homeland security concerns. If we have another event or incident in the United States and all of a sudden the threat levels go up, then, part of that tasking now becomes protection of the strategic targets, which are the 26 of them listed within New London County, and we have several of those here in the city.
Okay. So again, thank you very much for taking the initiative, taking what people are asking for, and actually putting something, thought, and pen and paper together. I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, that was informing. So Jeff, thank you. Chief, stay where you're at.
Yes, sir.
I need a motion to add police department vehicle purchase to the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Thanks.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Chief?